Discuss our case. So this is a 40-year-old man had COVID 1 month back and discharged from the hospital with Clexane and Ecosprin, right? So again after 1 month, he presented with shortness of breath, a plain CT of chest suggested post-COVID fibrosis, and he was maintaining well on nasal cannula. On day 2 of admission in the morning, he had an episode of hemoptysis. So both Clexane and Ecosprin are stopped. 1 hour later, he had sudden onset shortness of breath, and we received the patient in our ICU in a gasping state on NRBM. We did, we did the ABG. ABG had type 1 respiratory failure, acute hypoxemic respiratory failure. Because sensorium was okay till then, we put the patient on NIV with 100% oxygen, but barely the saturation improved. SpO2 remained 75%. So then the patient finally intubated, but even on intubation of giving 100% FiO2, saturation failed to improve. It remained 75% on 100% FiO2. So let us discuss how to approach such cases. So before going in detail in our case, let us discuss what are the pathophysiology behind or concept behind these cases. So, so there are two things. One is this is the lung unit, and this is the blood vessels, right? So the air from outside, it comes via the upper airway, then the lower airway, reaches the alveoli, right? And the blood from the right heart, it goes through the pulmonary artery to the pulmonary capillaries, this way. And there is diffusion gas exchange from the alveoli and the blood vessels, right? This is the usual or the normal way how the ventilation and the perfusion, they work. So what happens in shunt? In the shunt, now because of some reason, the air that is coming from outside is not able to interact with the blood that is flowing to the pulmonary artery, right? So the blood is actually shunted. The blood is actually shunted without getting any oxygen or without any removal of carbon dioxide. So this is called shunt. It's called shunt pathology. Means perfusion will be there, but there will not be any ventilation, or in other words, there won't be any diffusion or gas exchange, right? So this will produce a type 1 respiratory failure, hypoxemic respiratory failure, increase in AA gradient, and a shunt physiology. Because of the shunt physiology, because there is the air that is coming from outside is not in contact with the blood vessels or the bloods, even if we increase the FiO2 also, the saturation will not improve, right? Because ultimately it is not getting any connection with the blood vessels or the capillaries in the pulmonary circulation. So even if you increase the FiO2 also, the saturation will not improve, right? And the another technique is VQ mismatch. What happens here? Here actually the opposite thing happens. The air is coming freely from outside, but because of some problem, the blood is actually not flowing. For example, let's say in pulmonary embolism, there is a clot. The clot is lying in the blood vessels. So there is no perfusion in that vessels. So whatever air is coming to that alveoli is not getting in contact with the blood that is flowing through that vessels, right? So there is no gas exchange, there is no diffusion. But here, this blood can be diverted to other alveoli. So even in this situation, if you increase the FiO2, there will be increase in the saturation or the partial pressure of oxygen. So this is called the VQ mismatch. There's a ventilation and perfusion mismatch is happening here, and that mismatch can be corrected up to some extent by increasing the FiO2, because the blood that is being stopped from coming in contact with the alveoli can be diverted to some other alveoli, and there can be gas exchange. So if you increase the FiO2, actually it can correct the desaturation or hypoxemia. This is called a VQ mismatch, right? So how to approach a type 1 respiratory failure in a very simplistic way? Obviously, we are talking about true hypoxemic respiratory failure, that is increase in the alveolar to arterial gap. So it can have two kinds of pathophysiology. One is shunt, one is VQ mismatch. So in our option, we had pneumothorax, we had collapse of lung, we had endobrachial intubation. All these three will produce a shunt physiology. What do you mean by that? So the pneumothorax, because of high pressure in one side, there will be pressure atelectasis. So it will cause the lungs to be collapsed. In other words, they are not allowed to expand with the incoming air. So even though there is perfusion, there is no ventilation. Same goes for collapsed of lung. For example, mucus, clot, or foreign bodies, they can obstruct one of the airways and produce complete collapse of that side of the lung. So there will be blood supply, but there will not be any oxygenation. So it will produce a shunt physiology. Same goes for endobronchial intubation, whether intentional or unintentional. So in all of this situation, what will happen is, if you increase the FiO2, SpO2 and PO2, they will not improve. However, in case of VQ mismatch, for example, in pulmonary embolism, if a clot is there, it will produce a VQ mismatch. But if you increase the FiO2, both the SpO2 and PO2, they will increase. Alright. So now let us come to our case. So in our case, basically he had a type 1 respiratory failure. So what happened is, exactly, if you see on NIV 100%, SpO2 was 70%. Then on ventilator or invasive ventilator, even on 100% FiO2, SpO2 remains 75%. So this is more or less behaving like a shunt, isn't it? However, this is a very peculiar case. In real life, actually, there is no disease which can produce a 100% shunt or 100% VQ mismatch. There is always a mixture. Of course, some will produce a predominant shunt pathology, some will produce a predominant VQ mismatch pathology. Now see, in this case, the saturation did not improve even on increasing the support of ventilation, increasing the FiO2, everything. So our patient definitely has a shunt pathophysiology. So according to our option, he can have collapse, can have a pneumothorax, can have a endobronchial. Endobronchial is unlikely, so most of you have done the endobronchial option, which is also correct to some extent, because before intubation also the saturation did not improve on FiO2 100%. So patient can have endobronchial intubation in this case also after ventilation, but it is less likely. However, if it was a VQ mismatch, which is the major pathogenesis in pulmonary embolism, there should have been some increase in SpO2 or PO2 with increase in FiO2, right? Which is not in this case. So that is definitely not a pulmonary embolism, and the less likely chance of having an endobronchial intubation also, but most likely this can be a collapse or a pneumothorax, right? So the first option that is not likely in this case is a pulmonary embolism. Second will be endoauricular intubation, right? But the problem is in our case, it is very easy to divert actually. Patient COVID 1 month back can have a high risk of developing PE, pulmonary embolism. At the same time, he had a symptom of hemoptysis, which can be found in PE patients. He had a sinus tachycardia, can be found in PE patient. COVID patients by themselves, they are prothrombotic, right? Prothrombotic. COVID patients are prothrombotic, right? So one can easily bias oneself going towards pulmonary embolism. But if you know the concepts, in this case, you can easily diagnose this is not pulmonary embolism, this is something else, right? In this particular case also, when the patient came with such history, we all assumed that this is P, this is P, this is P. But when you closely look at the patient, we found out that this is actually not PE, this is something else, right? And what is that something else? And how to approach to that something else, we'll discuss in our next class. Next question. Thank you very much. So let us discuss our case. So in this case, in our last discussion, we have reached a point where we are confirmed that patient is having basically a shunt physiology, right? So this patient, what to do next? And in our case specifically, it is taking time for the chest X-ray to be performed or the USG chest to be done because the machines are busy somewhere else. So what to do in this case? Now, the basic medicine, the clinical scenario will help us doing this. So the answer will be clinical examination will help us in diagnosis. And after that also all these options are possible except this echo and RBCH function assessment is not required because we have seen that this is not a case of PE. But otherwise all other options are possible. So let us see how we can proceed with our case. So basically now we have to differentiate between pneumothorax and collapse, right? So what will happen in pneumothorax? Because you have already seen the left side air entry is decreased, so the patient is having problem on left side. So focus on the left side of the chest. If the left side of the chest is bulging and you do percussion, you find a tympanic node and you auscultate and there is decreased air entry, which we have already done, right? And you can inspect the trachea. The trachea will be shifted to opposite side, right? However, if it is a case of collapse, then the side of chest that is involved, where we have found out that the air entry is decreased, you will find it is drooping down. If you percuss it, you will find a dull nut. Obviously there will be decreased air entry. So this is not the thing that differentiates between pneumothorax and collapse that we have found out in our case, right? And if you find a trachea will be shifted to same side, right? So this is how we differentiate between pneumothorax and collapse. So in our case, what happened is, because patient had COVID infection and we have found out that in COVID, air leaks are very common, right? So it is very common for those patients to have pneumothorax. It is actually very common. So the reflex goes, a patient who is having decreased air entry, who had COVID in the past, must be having pneumothorax. The reflex goes to put ICD urgently. But in this case, if you look at the clinical feature more carefully, if you examine the patient carefully, you don't need a chest x-ray, you don't need a USG, but simply by clinical examining you can find out that it is collapse, not pneumothorax, right? So you can see how the case is evolving. In the beginning, the reflex was it is PE. Everybody is thinking it is PE because it is common in COVID patient. So we have negated that. Now the second most common thing in COVID was pneumothorax. That also we have negated, right? So see how the common situations are uncommon in this case. So you have to be very vigilant, very careful while dealing with such patients. Do not take things for granted that this is a COVID patient, this is going to happen in COVID patient. Most of the patients are having this kind of issue, so this patient must have this kind of issue. No. So always keep your clinical eyes open. Always look at the patient, look at the clinical condition, clinical scenario, clinical examination findings. That in that it will be very easy for you to diagnose what is happening in your patient. So our patient had a collapse. Even before the X-ray is available, we could diagnose it. Then immediately what we did, because the patient had hemoptysis, right? So likely that one clot may be lodged in the bronchus, causing a collapse. So immediately what we've done, we've done one bronchoscopy. And actually we found a large clot lying in the left inlet, right? It took around 30 minutes to 45 minutes to clear that, right? But after it is cleared, the patient gradually improved, right? So the answer will be clinical examination will definitely help in our finding and progress. So it can go towards ICD, it can go towards bronchoscopy, and proceed. In this case, after we've done the clinical examination, we found out it is collapse, so we've done a bronchoscopy. Otherwise, if you would have found out that this patient is having pneumothorax, the next option would have been ICD, right? So this is our case. Then the patient gradually improved, and now the patient is extubated. In fact, patient was comfortable on room air, so today we have shifted the patient out of our ICU, right? So how we have timely intervened in our patient in a very systematic manner and found out what is the problem in our patient and taken measures immediately to salvage the patient, right? Thank you very much.